Hi, my name is Maria Quintanilla, virtual content specialist for world languages. And before doing anything else, I'd like to reiterate my eagerness to support world language teachers across languages and levels as we shift to the new standards. And also to reintroduce the Teach Hub folder with all the instructional resources that we continue to create. This video has two purposes, two reasons. The first one, to introduce a digital resource. We call it Digital Notebook, which we are going to go over how to use it and how to share it with the students. And the second reason for this video is to briefly introduce the concept of cultural products, practices, and perspectives, because they align to the AP themes and teacher practices, and it also aligns to the benchmark standard for culture in the New York State Revised Standards. So let's get started. You can find the digital notebook in the Sequence Friends overview at the beginning of the sequence in the gray slides, that are teacher-facing slides. You can find it at the beginning of each lesson, and also, like I said just a few seconds ago, the sequence frame and overview for each lesson sequence. We'll see how it can organize not only notes, but it can keep the students organized. It can help the teacher see the progression of learning. It can also track new vocabulary structures, which we call functional chunks, and also keep students accountable. We will go over the template, how you can edit it, how you can share it with the students, and how the students can submit their work once it's ready for evaluation, okay? In Spanish, we are calling it Mi Libretita de Apuntes, but of course you can adapt the name to be suitable for the world language that you teach. So you'll find an English version or a copy of this digital notebook in English on those slides, the sequence frame overview. You'll find a copy there in English that you can use and available for you to use in your classroom. You will see that each slide in the digital notebook corresponds to one of the 5 essential moments in each lesson, where students may need to take notes or to record something that you want the students to keep track of. You'll see that all the lessons, in the lessons available, that they do contain 5 essential moments to guide students towards the learning objectives or the learning targets. I'm also making a video of the digital notebook for the students so they can also have an idea as to how it works and what it is and what they can do with it, okay? We also have in the digital notebook, well, you'll see that it's color-coded. You see that we have extra slides for them where you can add, or they can add more slides, or you can add more slides before you share it with them. You can also, as a teacher, include links for graphic organizers, images, videos that you can add to the template before you share it with the students, okay? You can also ask the students to hyperlink Google Docs or work that they're doing. You can also ask them to add a video. You can ask them to add an image. This way, students not only keep organized, but you keep track of the progression. So you can share this link or this digital notebook with the students via chat if you're teaching synchronously, remotely, or you can share it via email. If you're teaching, like I said before, in person, the students can make a copy once you put it in the chat, and they can share their copy with you so that you can have access to the work that they're doing. You can check their progress during the week, and you can ask them to submit it at the end of the week. It has worked in my classes. I've used this resource in the past in my classes at all levels, where I share it with the students at the beginning of a sequence. They make a copy, they share it back to me, and I am able to conference with them, check or monitor their work, and they don't have to submit it until the end of the week, but we are going over their work daily. And it also helps when the students want to do work at their own pace, because they're not really responsible until the end of the week. It has really worked. The students really appreciate the extra time for some of them, how organized it helps them to be. So this is a resource that we wanted to share with you so that you can, again, make it your own, use it as a template, and share it with your students. Okay? So moving on now to part 2 of this video, we're going to do a very, very brief introduction of the concepts of cultural products, practices, and perspectives. And why products, practices, and perspectives? Well, I don't want to get this wrong, so I'm going to read it word for word from the New York State proposed revisions to the New York State LOTE standards. First, our language classrooms are more than just teaching a language, but intercultural competence is really what sets our classrooms apart. We teach students to explore and learn from others and consider another culture's perspective. The New York State Revised Anchor Standard for Culture requires students to identify, describe, compare, and explain products, practices, and perspectives of the cultures studied using the target language. Specifically, we want to guide learners use the target language to identify, describe, and explain the practices and products of the culture studied, as well as the cultural perspectives they suggest. And also, we also guide our learners to compare the products and practices of the cultures studied and their own. So eventually the students will have to compare their culture with another culture using the concepts of products, practices, and perspectives. Okay, so you will see that the first lesson for students, for products, practices, and perspectives, which I'm also making a video for them so that they can at least be familiar with the concepts, it appears in the unit El Llanto de la Pachamama in lesson 2.4, but the 3 Ps, products, practices, and perspectives, will recur throughout all the sequences at different proficiency levels. Okay, so you'll find it here in lesson 2.4, and basically the 3 products, or understanding a culture, or in order to understand a culture, we must think of it almost like an iceberg. Whatever we see on the outside are the products of a culture. Whatever you see inside the water, right, would be the practices. And in order for us to see the perspectives, we have to see a little bit more deeply in order to understand products, practices, and perspectives. So basically, right, when we talk about products, is what we see. Something like music, something like food, buildings, clothing, even the laws of a culture could be a product. And then the practices. What do people do? What do they eat together? Do they throw a party? How do they celebrate traditions? Do they pray or give thanks? Or do they, before they eat, right? And then the most difficult one, really, because we have to look really deep, would be the perspectives. Why do people do those practices in that culture? Why do they eat together? Why do they celebrate a quinceañera, for example? Why do they eat together in family? What is the importance of that? That would be the concept of perspectives. And I would have to say that perspectives is really the most difficult concept for students to grasp or to be able to express. So we do have to spend some time explaining the concept of perspective, because we really don't want our students to fall into just stereotypes of a culture. Okay, well, and I'm going to say that that is just a brief introduction to the concept of products, cultural products, practices, and perspectives. And well, this was an overview of the digital notebook and a brief introduction to the 3 Ps. Thank you so much for your commitment to our students. I look forward to continue working with you throughout the remainder of the school year.